Who is that?
It's
Hello,
Ellen
Ellen.
Plotkin.
Oh, Ellen Plotkin.
My Helen, how are you, my darling?
Ellen Plotkin, send me your email so we can send you a link for tonight. We don't have your email.
Oh, okay.
I can send it later. I'll
Will you
send it.
send it to her?
Yeah,
All right.
I will.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Ellen, my little
Happy-
Ellen, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Happy birthday. I'm so happy to be celebrating it
And
with
there-
you.
Marjorie Simon, I just,
here.
wonderful.
You'll be seeing me today, all day. Happy birthday, Helen.
Thank you. It's really
an honor to be
amazing. 90.
participating.
What?
I want to invite everyone to, if you want to unmute and say happy birthday, please feel free, write in the chat, because we'll be saving the chat for Helen for later. So write your birthday messages into the chat and go ahead, say happy birthday.
Oh, Willa, thank you. for
Happy
your-
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Happy
Happy birthday,
birthday.
Helen.
Birthday,
Helen.
Buddy.
Birthday, Helen.
Hello.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Oh, the world. I love
Happy
you.
birthday, Helen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nice
I
to see all these people.
Can we save the chats so that I know?
We are going to save the chat. This is being recorded, so we can both read all the nice messages later and listen again and hear people's thoughts.
Hi, Helen. It's Marge Kolodner.
Marge, how are you?
You don't look a day over 70.
Thank you. That's what
None of
I
us
said.
do.
Oh, to be 70 again, right?
Did you get the link for tonight? Can you send the link for tonight to Marge and Phil, please?
Yes, Phil is right here next to
I
me.
know, but send them the link for tonight, all right?
Happy birthday from the Salvats.
My heavens.
This is terrible. I can't get any volume. Oh, Sylvia's on here.
Hello there, Salvats.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah.
We're good.
We're from Florida, so we're saying.
You're in Florida. You decamped.
If anyone's having technical
I can't get
trouble,
any volume here.
it sounds like you're having technical, but you can't hear me because you're saying you have no volume. Sometimes I forget and leave my headphones plugged in.
Thank you. Oh,
I can hear you the whole time.
Hi, Amy.
Okay.
Rick, look at you.
Oh,
There you are.
Hi, Ruth.
What is Rick sliding on?
There's
Rick.
Hi,
honey.
I'm getting,
What is sliding on?
I'm sitting on a pillow and I'm still too short. My
Yeah, me too. I have.
More
I have-
apple pie is what you need.
I have 2 pillows under
We
that.
are
too, I
the
said hello.
shrinking generation.
You look tall on Zoom, Ruth.
I guess I'm not much. Everyone's going down.
We're so glad everyone's joining us. We have 126 people so far, so we'll spend a few more minutes saying hello before we get started.
Oh, it's good to see everybody. I haven't seen people in so long.
I know.
Oh, this is the old gang here.
Yeah.
So, hi,
How do I get?
Marianne.
Go on.
Hey, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello, Ruth. Hello, Rick.
Good to see you.
Hi, Ellen.
How
Great
are
to see
you
you.
guys? Nice to see you guys.
Where are my earrings here?
Right. So,
Oh, yeah.
It's
Hi, Jill.
nice to see everyone's
Hi.
face.
How are you?
Everybody.
Jill. Hi.
hi.
Good morning, Jill.
Hi.
Good morning, Helen.
I did listen last night to Sheldon. He was really wonderful.
Thank you.
I signed it and I gave a contribution in memory of Elijah Pierce.
That might be the one.
Great.
That's so great.
Your hair looks great.
That Elijah Pierce show is amazing. Unfortunately, the Barnes is closing. So
But
people
you know what? They're gonna extend it.
Exactly
Oh,
Good, good.
Exactly.
it's a stunning show.
Sid, do I have your email? I want to send you a link for tonight. I'll have my children. Send me your email. Where are you?
Sid, she's talking to you, Sid.
Ross Schneiderman, when I told my daughter what I was going to do at 12 o'clock, she remembers you. And so this is a 2-generation family.
Yeah, Who am I looking at? I can't see.
Ross Schneiderman.
How do you do, Ross Schneiderman?
I'm doing
It is a two-generation family.
I went into business 50 years ago. You were the place to shop.
Oh, great. I never thought of myself as being a shop. I think that's great. That's really wonderful.
Hello, this is.
I really.
Golden. Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
I miss the Saturday.
I don't have an image.
I really miss the
Push the
Saturday.
video thing that says.
What video thing?
Bottom
it
left.
says,
Bottom left.
It says
We're all
stop video,
experts.
it's probably crossed out.
Says unpinned video.
Right.
Is that what
Do
I
that
put?
one.
It sounds like our movie group.
It's probably on the top right corner of your, if you touch the top right corner on your iPad, there's an unmute and a start video command there.
It's Judy Golden who's having problems.
Right, I can't seem to find.
Okay. Well, maybe someone can help Judy in the chat. I am just doing one more thing, hoping that this is working on Facebook. We'll see if that worked.
We like your earrings, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. They are Maria Ife, a Philadelphia craft artist, and I was just trying to find the biggest ones possible so that I could make a difference here on the screen. Oh dear, it's not working today. Sorry, everybody. Hold on one second. I thought I had this all under control, but my Facebook doesn't want to go. Okay, well, that's fine. We've got 147 people on our call. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. I am going to ask that we mute ourselves for a little while Helen and I have a conversation, and then we can happily unmute again to talk some more at the end. So let's
say happy birthday, Helen, from Marianne.
Oh, Marianne, how lovely.
Oh, hi, Marianne. Okay, I'm just going to mute everyone for a little bit, and then we'll unmute again. Oh, of course, now I've also muted Helen. Here we go. Helen, I'm so sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry about that.
Unmute.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Welcome, everyone, on the occasion, the auspicious occasion of Helen Drutt's 90th birthday today. She has graciously agreed to have a short conversation with me about her long life in craft. And I was just also so happy to have this opportunity to invite our whole clay studio and craft community together to say happy birthday to her as well. So again, as I mentioned earlier, please put your birthday messages into the chat. They will be recorded and given to Helen. We're also recording this for anyone to watch again, and also any comments you make here, Helen can listen to again. So I am Jennifer Zwilling. I am the curator of artistic programs at the Clay Studio here in Philadelphia. We are an organization that is dedicated to spreading ceramic education for people to both learn how to make clay, but also to appreciate it and to have it in their lives. And that is definitely something that Helen has been working on throughout her life in craft. And I'm going to make a few comments about her long history with the Clay Studio. I want to thank all of my colleagues at the Clay Studio for always helping. None of these programs would be possible without them. We do this every week, not always with someone as auspicious as Helen, but always with important artists, and we get to hear their thoughts. We get to spend some time together, so feel free to think about joining us for a future Lunch and Learn on Thursdays. We produce this programming free, so also think about other ways that you might be able to support us, whether it's going on and doing your holiday shopping through our website, viewing our exhibitions, and maybe taking a class online or in person these days. So again, we are now up to 157. Helen Drutt, her on auspicious date of her birthday today. Her impact on the field of craft cannot be overstated. Welcome, Helen. Helen's involvement in the field began in the mid-1950s, first as a collector. This passion led her to be a founding member of the Philadelphia Council of Professional Craftsmen in 1967. She served as its executive director until 1974. In 1973, she founded her eponymous gallery, the Helen Drutt Gallery, in Philadelphia, and was its director until 2002, when she moved on. Helen developed the syllabus for the first college-level course in the history of modern craft in 1973, which she taught at the Philadelphia College of Arts, which is now UArts. She has written numerous articles, given countless talks, and her archives are a resource to scholars and institutions throughout the world. As a gallerist, author, lecturer, curatorial consultant, and collector, her contributions have been vast, with scholarship and education being at the heart of her endeavors. The Helen Drutt Gallery was among the first in the United States to make a commitment to the modern and contemporary craft movement. And in 1979, I found through reading another article that American Craft Magazine stated that her gallery was to crafts what Alfred Stieglitz's Gallery 291 was to photography earlier in the 20th century, and I have to agree. She acted as a catalyst to introduce American crafts internationally and brought European, Australian, and Asian works here to America and specifically to Philadelphia. The Clay Studio has been honored over the years to work with Helen on exhibitions and essays. In 1983, Helen wrote the catalog essay for American clay artists at the Clay Studio, which had works by the who's who of ceramic artists at the time. There was a long list. I'm sorry. I think some of you who were in that show are on this call. I don't mean to leave anyone out, but I'll just read a few of the names. Robert Arneson, Ruth Duckworth, whose piece you see behind Helen on the wall. June Kaneko, Marilyn Levine, Rudy Staffel, Robert Turner, Betty Woodman, Ken Bavrick, Patty Warashina, many, many others. In it, she said, American clay artist, Philadelphia, 1983, reinforces the notion that the categories established in art 3 centuries ago have been dissolved for a myriad of reasons, and that the artist working in clay is a dominant force in the art of today. That was in 1983, and we all know it is still very true today. In 2014, Helen donated to the Hermitage a collection of 74 works, including ceramics, furniture, and jewelry to, as I said, the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia, creating the first modern American room installation in a museum outside the US. Helen is visionary on many levels, supporting artists, and the field itself has been a constant touchstone throughout her career in craft. I feel incredibly privileged to have known Helen for about the last 15 years and to have followed in her footsteps, teaching the history of craft myself at the Tyler School of Art for over 10 years. Now, as the curator at the Clay Studio, I feel lucky to continue to have her support, generosity, and most of all, her friendship. Thank you for listening to my long introduction, but it is warranted. Thank you again for joining us, Helen. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Can I first ask you to tell us a little bit about that first passionate moment when you saw a work of craft and it moved your spirit enough to want to learn more about it?
Actually, before that first passionate moment, there was a moment in the Laurentian Mountains in 1954 when I saw my first hand-woven napkin and placemat. I had never seen a hand-woven napkin and placemat, even though I had been a student at Tyler, and even though in our bells, you know, weaving looms and I really acted as a stand. When I went to visit George Nakashima's studio,
we seem to have had a problem with Helen's connection. Oh, hold on, everybody. Oh dear.
Helen, are you speaking to the microphone?
Oh, no, I think there's a problem with her.
More than that?
Yeah.
Great.
I'm
This
gonna
is
ask.
Eileen. My
Hi.
Wi-Fi just messed up and I'm also in the other side of the house, so maybe it's our network.
Okay, maybe
I'll go
if
check.
it's better on your side, maybe she should
I'll
come
fix it.
over to you.
Oh, Matthew's on too. He'll go deal.
Okay, sorry, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us.
But it's
Thank
good
you,
to
Eileen.
know. I moved. I thought it was my phone. Hi, everybody.
Someone on the chat just mentioned that if everyone could mute their video during this, I may be able to actually do it for you. Then Helen can keep on video, and that might make the signal easier to. No, I'll have to ask you all to mute your own videos. So just turn your video off, and that might make the signal a little bit easier to get through. I'm so sorry. Thank you for bearing with us. I was hoping not to only hear my own voice during this talk, but I'm sure we'll figure it out in a minute. Thanks everybody for bearing with us. I really appreciate it.
Does everybody else have a signal?
Yeah, other people are just patiently waiting. They know that what happens. It's fine. Okay.
Here's a craft joke for all of you.
Oh, good. Shannon has a joke.
What's the difference between a pot and a vessel? About $3,000.
Thanks, Shannon.
I just speak about? Can you hear me if I just talk?
I can hear you. I don't know. Can everybody? Shannon, can you hear Helen when she's talking through my phone?
Yeah. It's a little faint.
I'll turn it up. Are you? Is Matthew working on it? Do you want to just keep talking?
Yeah, Matthew's working on it.
Okay. All right, Helen. Sure. Go ahead. Everyone can hear you if you want to keep talking about your moment in the mountains with the hand.
Yes, we talked about the Laurentian Mountains, but then we spoke about the fact that I went to visit George Nakashima, and I think it was 1954 to 1955, and I think I told you that I entered his consciousness, but I was drawn to his students. Very curious about what was happening with handcrafts, and that the GIs had come back from the war. They were all establishing studios in the country. There were potters. There were.
Hey, you're back. You're back.
All right, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. All right, thank you. So I was interested in understanding why people were returning the hand when I was old, very fervent. I remember Arthur Drexler saying that nobody would ever, do handcraft again, that even the Museum of Modern Art was committed to the industrial and machine age. But when the GIs came back after the war, they wanted to find a way in order to be in control of their own lives. And handwork was an essential part of that mission. And it was also an essential part of how the faculties began to become formed in Philadelphia, after the Second World War, when Richard Reinhardt came and Bill Daley came, and they were GIs and they were teaching in the colleges and in the universities. So I was curious, and I visited Nakashima, visit Philip Lloyd Powell, and I went to visit Paul Evans, and I found my way into Wharton Eschrick's studio in Paoli, and the whole concept of living and understanding works that had been made by a person that I knew and whose signature through their work I could recognize. And it was so remarkable to me that I began to take my industrially made Juliana dishes and my Artsburg dishes, and I started giving them away. And I began to look for potters to make my tableware, because I wanted to also have the experience of knowing and relating in my daily life to those people who were creating objects for, at that time, utilitarian use. So that was a beginning spark for me. But the other thing that happened, which was rather interesting, and I'm not sure if Bill Daly will remember this, but the waterworks on the Schuylkill had housed an aquarium, and the aquarium was emptied, and the fish were sent, I think, someplace else in the city to live. And I went to look at the aquarium, and I saw all these empty shells, you know, where the fish had been, and it was underneath the waterworks. And I came up with this crazy idea, and I went to see Robert Crawford, who was the commissioner at that time in charge of parks in the city grounds. And I told him that I thought that the empty shells under the waterworks should become studios, and they should become studios for craft artists, potters and weavers and metalsmiths. And that the water wheel, which was the celebrated water wheel, which was at the entrance to these empty shells, was sort of also a symbol of handcraft and handmade objects. And that the empty office on the top could become a gallery. I think he really thought I was out of my mind. I know that he thought I was out of my mind, but I thought we could have Haystack on the Schuylkill in Philadelphia.
Oh, that would have been lovely.
It would have been a great concept, but it didn't happen. And I also thought at that time that if that could materialize, then the graduate students from PCA and Tyler and more could teach for, let's say, 2 years at a time. And then they would move out, and another group of craft artists or craft students could also have a job. But it was, you know, it was an idea and a concept that never materialized and could have been really wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds great. It's such a great building too. I mean, it was thought of as one of the wonders of the world for a few years. So that would have been amazing. That brings me to think about you talk about the graduate students and your dedication to supporting artists throughout your career. Can you tell us a little bit about the beginnings of PCPC?
The beginnings of the Philadelphia Council of Professional Craftsmen started in about 1967. I was attending a lecture, a Marshall McLuhan lecture, actually, at the University of Pennsylvania. And sitting next to me was this wonderful human being, and it turned out that his name was Reverend Richard Jones. And I said to him, well, what is a reverend doing at a Marshall McLuhan lecture? And he said, well, I'm part of a special denomination of 7 denominations in Philadelphia. We're very concerned with the fact that we have lost the secular community, and we are trying to understand our community so that we can eventually bring them back into the church. And he in particular was representing the Baptist community. And so he said to me, well, why are you here? And what is your interest? And I said, well, I'm interested in the crafts. He said, well, what does that mean? And I told him, I'm interested in those individuals who create objects with their hands, ceramics and woodworking and textiles and metalsmithing and glass blowing. He said, so what are you doing about it? I said, I'm not really able to do anything. I would really love to find a way to bring that community together. And he said, well, I represent the Metropolitan Associates of Philadelphia. We're called MAP. We're 7 denominations. He said, why don't I give you our offices as a starting point? Because if you begin to research who's teaching in the different schools and invite them to your home, they'll just think you're another middle-aged maiden or woman that has nothing else to do. He said, but if I offer you our offices, it's an official place. And we had our first meeting there. I didn't know Bill Daly. I didn't know, the only person I knew was Rudy Stoffel because he was my teacher in the late 40s at Tyler. But I didn't know Daly. I didn't know Reinhardt. You know, I didn't know anybody. And we just made a list of everybody and we brought them together for that first meeting. Dan Jackson, Olaf Scoopfers, Stanley Lexon, Bill Daly, Richard Reinhardt. It was, I'm not sure that Ted was there. I don't remember whether Ted Holman was there or not. And we talked among ourselves and realized that we wanted to strengthen the presence of the crafts in the city. We wanted the crafts also to be recognized equally with painting and sculpture and architecture and literature and poetry. And so we decided to form an organization. And I came up with the concept that the persons or the artists who belonged to the artist organization had their primary position was through either teaching or maintaining their own studio. And maintaining their own studio, like Byron Temple or, you know, or Paul Evans or Eschrick or Nakashima or Bill Daly and Reinhardt and, you know, and Holman and the Winnikers weren't there yet, and Stoffel, but their primary role was their own studio and or teaching. So if your dentist was making rings, it was not his primary profession. Therefore, he would not be part of the Philadelphia Council of Professional Craftsmen. It caused a lot of unpleasantness in the community because it left out many people who were working in the field, but it also created a forum of people whose primary life was dedicated to the crafts. And that was
it was a support system for them.
And also, and our goal was to also encourage the museum to look at crafts as in the same manner that they would look at painting and sculpture or drawing or photography. And slowly, you know, it began to evolve and take a powerful position in the community. It was the PCPC that encouraged craftsmen 67, 70, and 73, which took place at the Museum of the Philadelphia Civic Center under Harry Furliger and Alan Matalski. And so those first exhibitions were really amazing. And it was the first time that the Philadelphia community was able to see the strength of the craft community, because those exhibitions were devoted to the crafts. And those catalogs, I think, are still available. And people like Sam Malouf, Mia Matsukata, Bill Wyman were among the jurors of those exhibitions. So we also brought major craftspeople from other parts of the country to jury. So that was a really amazing beginning. And when we began to fulfill all our objectives, that was the moment in which I began to think, well, that was the moment that the gallery emerged. And the gallery emerged because we had just finished a cup show, a national cup show. We had no place to store the 54 crates. We did the cup show because we thought it was an opportunity for the community to see a range and diversity of ceramic arts in the country. And everybody was doing cup shows, so we called it another cup show. But it was sponsored actually by Dorothy Haas at the Walnut Street Theater first. And we had the first exhibition in the lobby of the Walnut Street Theater. And then we brought the exhibition to PCA. And then after the exhibition was over, we had no place for the crates. And we had to decide on how to return the work. And Olaf Scoopfers and Dan Jackson and I were walking down Spruce Street, and there was a rent sign. And they said, well, Helen, I think it's time that we rent our own space. And that's how the gallery started. We rented, it was a double parlor for, I think it was $165 a month. I went to a bank to get a loan, and they didn't want to give me a loan. And then I wouldn't leave until they gave me the loan. I sat there because I had a bank account there. The bank was the Fidelity. It was the Fidelity Annex on 24th and Manning Street. I will never forget that. And then they were so flabbergasted that I wouldn't leave that they finally gave me the papers and they forgot to sign. So I got a $10,000 loan. But then we stopped and disbanded PC because we had already fulfilled the directives that we wanted. And we were able to get the museum to come and look at crafts. I remember that among my first exhibitions, Darrell Sewell and Evan Turner came to look at the Bill Daly exhibition. And when they finally decided to acquire a daily from the exhibition, I remember Evan Turner slapping me on my back and saying, I bet you're happy now. And also Calvin Hathaway. Calvin Hathaway actually acquired the Birdbath by Paul Winokur that was in the exhibition at the Museum of the Philadelphia Civic Center. And he acquired that. And then through the Inner Society of Decorative Arts and Design, which eventually became CoLab, he actually had an exhibition in one of the hallways of the museum. And I think that exhibition has been documented in Kathy Hiesinger's book on CoLab. I think there's a photograph of that exhibition there. And the Winokur is there, and also I recognize Concerto by Louise Todd, who was a weaver, was on the wall. So those are some of the early, embryonic beginnings.
And that's around the same time that you decided to teach the class at PCA. So how did that come about, that you went from showing work and being with the artists to teaching the history of the field?
Right. Robert Judson Clark at Princeton University did an exhibition called The Arts and Crafts Movement in America in, I think, the early 70s. And at the opening of that exhibition, there was a major symposium and there was an important catalog. And I went to that symposium. It was really amazing. And I brought the catalog back and I looked at the catalog and I thought to myself, well, here is America documented from 1876 to 1918 or 1930. I don't remember the exact date. I said, but we need to have some kind of, study and some kind of history of art program that talks about the crafts after the Second World War. There are books on the Bauhaus that go from the First World War and then through the Bauhaus, but there was nothing happening in the curriculum after 1945 to the present. And I went to see George Culler, who was the president of the Philadelphia College of Art at that time. And I said to him, we really need to have a course here at PCA. And so he said, well, who do you think could teach it? I said, well, let's ask Robert Judson Clark, because he's just done the late 18th and early 19th. And we went to Princeton and he said, no way is he going to even begin to put a syllabus together. He knows nothing about anything after the Second World War, he said, and he doesn't have time to do that. And then we went to Harvard, and then we talked to somebody else, I think at Johns Hopkins. And finally, George Culler said to me, you don't stop talking about this field. All you do is talk about the field, talk about what's happening. You're trading slides with Peter Volkus and Rudy Stoffel. He said, you put the course together. I said, but I'm not a historian. He said, put the course together. And he said, I'll give you 6 months. So for 6 months, I really dug into libraries. I even went to England and I, learned about I learned about William Morris. I learned about William Morris's influence in America, about the Roycrofters, about how Cranbrook was also influenced by Morris. And it was amazing. And then I began to teach, and I was so nervous that I would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to study before I went to my 8 o'clock class or my 8:30 class. I was always studying so that I would be prepared in the classroom. And then I came up with the idea that I shouldn't really worry about 1930 or, you know, or 1920, that Nicholas Pevsner had written this amazing book, Pioneers of Modern Design. And so I developed the concept that my students would read Pevsner, and I would give lectures about post-World War II and information that wasn't documented. And then suddenly Objects USA appeared, which was also a book that we could use. We had Objects USA from 1969. We had the Robert Tiffany book. We had Oscar Triggs, which I had discovered. And I mean, I had discovered it in a library. I hadn't discovered it personally. So those texts became also seminal parts of the teaching. And I used my connections with artists in different parts of the world to get information on post-World War II, and also information on the 60s and the 70s at that time. Stanley Lexton and Olaf Skupfors had gone to Europe, and they brought back wonderful catalogs on European metalsmiths. And the library at PCA photographed those catalogs so that I could use them in teaching. And I would trade slides. You know, I remember sending 20 slides of Daly and Stoffel and Higby and I can't remember, I think it was Turner, in the late 70s to the West Coast, and I got slides from them, from Bob Brady, and I got slides from Volkus and Kaneko. It was a matter of, you know, this was before, it was a matter of having friendships and communicating. And this was before the computer. This was even before fax in a way at times, because so everything was by telephone and by mail.
Oh, right on cue, telephone.
Don't answer the phone.
I'm not answering.
So it sounds, I think that the themes that I hear are very much about relationships and supporting each other, and you know, reaching out. When I hear you talking about how you created this class and being passionate about it is one thing, but the work of shooting slides and figuring out what kind of books you could use. Even in 2005, when I started teaching, I didn't know what craft was until I was offered this class, you know, that I taught at Tyler. The same thing. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning the same way. And it was so much easier for me because I had the ability to sort of, even in the 15 years ago, look at the computer and find images that way. So I know how much work that was, and I appreciate the importance of putting a flag in the sand and saying this field deserves a history. So that was just a hugely important thing that you did. And now I hear you talking about that course maybe having some impact on looking to international artists and sort of saying, like, it's one thing to know what's happening on the East Coast, and then we have to figure out what's happening on the West Coast. And then you have to figure out what's happening in Europe. So can you talk a little bit about those first forays over to Europe? Because that was such an important part of what you did, was to bring the Europeans to Philadelphia.
Right. I will. But right before that, I just want to say that PCA would not let me take the slides home overnight in order to prepare my lectures. The librarian was really strict. I mean, I think her first name was Fran. I don't even remember. I think I might have blocked it. So I would come into the library at 7:30 in the morning to prepare my lecture, because we weren't allowed to take the slide even though most of those slides were slides that I brought and had framed and had, established in the library.
And that was an expense.
What?
Making slides
Right.
was expensive.
And then one of the things was that sitting across from me at 7:30 in the morning was Ann Tucker, who was also doing the history of photography at PCA. And we became friends because of that moment at 7:30 in the morning, sitting across from each other. And I remember I had taken the slide of Merritt Oppenheimer's Cup with Fur. And she questioned me, why am I showing that slide? Because it was for my cup show. At any rate, so I'm just telling you the kind of relationships that developed, as a result of beginning to teach and also becoming friendly with other professors who were teaching. What is the matter? I'm going to just take it off the hook.
It's your birthday. Of course, everybody wants to call you.
Now she went up and started looking for it.
All right, here I am. Do you have me again? All right,
Yep.
here I am.
We're all good.
And at any rate, so the European connection. The European connection really started with Stanley Lexon and Olaf Skogfors, who in the late 60s decided to go to Europe to visit the studios of the European goldsmiths. And they came back with this amazing catalog of information, I think it was called Gold and Silver. And it was a black catalog with silver. It had a square frontispiece. It was really amazing. But it was through them that I became acquainted with people like Hermann Junger and Klaus Bury and Gerd Blotzman, all these people that I had never even known about. And I became acquainted with their work, and I became interested in what they were doing. And I realized that they were a platform for information for us in the field. And as a result of their going to Europe, some of those artists eventually came to the United States. But one of the seminal things that happened was my meeting with Klaus Bury, which had nothing really to do with Stanley or Olaf. But in 1973 or 74, Klaus came to the United States through the support of a patron by the name of Ida Bolin, who was a major collector of metals in living in Amsterdam. And then through Brooke Horgan, we developed a lecture tour for him so that he could, he lectured in Newport, he lectured, in the West Coast. And I became, familiar with his work. And then there goes my phone again. Wait a minute. And so then I met Heis Bacher and Emmy Van Leersen, who also came to the United States.
I'll get it.
Philadelphia, and who came to Philadelphia. Are you there? Right.
Yep. Everything's fine.
Okay. Who came to Philadelphia, and we developed a friendship and a communication that is still ongoing. My relationship with Klaus Bury, my relationship with Heis and Emmy, who's been deceased for many, many years. But my friendship with these people is still ongoing and led me into a broader field. The thing that happened with England that was so important was the fact that in 1970, I attended the World Crafts Council meeting in Dublin. And at that meeting, I met Graham Hughes, who was at that time the director of the Goldsmiths Hall. And I was wearing an electroform brooch by Stanley Lexon. And I had taken 2 or 3 electroform brooches with me, and I had them wrapped in handkerchiefs. And I had acquired them from Stan. And I was wearing them at this meeting. And Graham Hughes sort of seized me. And as a result of that, we became friends. He wanted to show Stanley's work in England. It wasn't hallmarked, but at the same time, he was organizing an exhibition of the work of Wendy Ramshaw and David Watkins. And he introduced me to Mattie Bishop, to the firm of Mattie Bishop, which was supporting the Wendy Ramshaw, David Watkins exhibition. The result was we did an exchange. Wendy and David came to Philadelphia, their first exhibition in the United States, and it was held at the American Institute of Architects at 17th and Sampson. And it was the first time their work was shown, and it was under the auspices of the PCPC. It was under our auspices.
Yeah.
So we arranged with the American Institute of Architects. The American Institute of Architects was also the gallery that showed the first PCPC exhibition in Philadelphia. And Bill Daly taught me that if you don't want the director of the AIA gallery to change your exhibition, you just stay and paint until 2 o'clock in the morning. And then when it's 8, it's too late. So, that happened. And I'm trying to think of what your original question was.
Oh, it was just about international, which you explained so well, and those first connections. And I guess selfishly, I want to also hear about your interactions with the clay studio kind of early on. And I know you worked with in 1983 on American Clay Artists, but what can you tell us a little about what you remember about early clay studio things?
Well, I think that your memory is a little bit better than mine, except that I do remember that we did exhibitions with the Clay Studio, and those exhibitions were held at the Port of History Museum, if I'm not mistaken, because that Port Museum no longer exists. So and then also I remember when Jimmy Clark did the East European exhibition, which was really amazing. I mean, it was the first time our community really saw work from Eastern Europe. So it was always a kind of support in the terms that we were interested, and when I know that I'm trying to think. I think that I know that the gallery was very supportive of the programs of the Clay Studio and of the exhibitions, which were more expansive than in the Clay Studio itself.
Yeah, right, because there were several kind of citywide exhibitions that I know the gallery was part of. I think that I feel that your work and the work of the artists who started PCPC really affected the rest of the arts and crafts community in Philadelphia. I feel like just people getting together and seeing a need and creating an organization is part of what the Clay Studio did. 5 artists who saw a need, they wanted to share studio space, and they saw PCPC, they saw others who had done it before them, and they knew it was possible. So I see that as an inspiration point. And now today, if you look at young artists in Philadelphia, even still, they're getting together, they're starting collectives. That's what's so great about Philadelphia. And I just really look to you and those early artists who are doing that as a catalyst for all of that.
Yeah, but I was not alone. I was part of a community of people. We all worked together. And I remember when Objects USA came to the Museum of the Philadelphia Civic Center, we decided to reach out and also do an auxiliary exhibition of Philadelphians who were collecting ceramics and who were collecting objects, ceramics and metal, so that the Objects USA exhibition at that time also had a very community component at the same time, so that Philadelphia would see Objects USA, but they would also know that Philadelphia was a center for individuals who were interested in working in collecting in the field, which was also very important. And and then we did, there were the exhibitions at the Campbell Museum in 1976. when we did the soup tureen exhibition. And again, it was a national exhibition of ceramic artists who were invited to participate in contemporary tureens for the Campbell Museum in 1976. Ralph Collier was the director of the museum. He came to me and talked to me about doing this. And I remember the first tureen that came into Campbell's was Kit Yin Ting Snyder's, and it was conceptual. And he was so upset. He said his board of directors would never, ever understand a box and then 6 eggs and then another element, because she did a conceptual tureen. But Bob Arneson did a John the Baptist tureen at that time. And we had artists coming from all over the country to create these works. Bill Daly made a tureen and he said, "Don't you ever, ever ask me to make anything so small again."
And that catalog still exists, and all those objects were photographed, and that's so important for the field. And that brings me to yet another thing that you are so good at, which is recording things, making sure that there is a record and an archive. And it's you were struggling to put down through your syllabus together, and you created a situation where scholars in the future would have more material to work with. So I also want to thank you for that. I know that people might have questions. I've actually got 1 or 2 questions that came in even before our talk today. So if anyone wants to ask Helen a question, please put it in the chat. And I will just say, well, first, Helen's archives are at the Smithsonian Archives of American Art. Well, I'm sorry, not her archives, the interview.
No,
just the interview.
Right.
Which is very rich.
And the second issue has not been completed, right?
Got it. And I know you just gave a big gift of books to Tyler School of Art. Is that right?
The Temple University.
Temple University.
The Temple University. Right.
Right. So that's
It's
extremely important for the field.
And they will they'll receive my library upon death. But right now they have all the seconds. And in addition to all the seconds in my library, I found a treasure trove of poetry books and English literature books that belong to Morris English, who was my husband, who died in 1983. That's 37 years ago. And he had an amazing library of poetry books from, the poets of his generation, including letters from Samuel Beckett. And those letters will also go to the Special Collections library at Temple University. So that was an amazing treasure trove that we didn't even know still existed, because his daughter has a major library in California, at any rate.
Wow.
But we do have curators coming from different parts of the world, to look at American ceramics, because we have a ceramic library and a metals library and a monograph library. And so the house is really very book oriented.
Yep. The house is a national treasure as well as.
Not really. It's just a house.
I think it is. It's pretty special. So Leslie Farron sent a question in advance. She would like to know what advice you would give to your younger self, maybe when you were, when you were 40 years old. What would you have told yourself? Do you have, that's a hard question.
What would I have told myself when I was 40?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. When I was 37, I went to see one of the deans at PCA to talk to him about the field, and he told me that this was no place for a middle-aged lady. Middle age, I was 37. What if to somebody at 40? No advice that would be no different than somebody at 90, just to be open to new ideas, to be open to students, be open to people, be open to an exchange of ideas. Never feel that there is a brick wall that stops you from learning. I mean, I think it's the same advice at 40 that you would have at 90, So Leslie, just keep your eyes going. And you do, Leslie, you're always looking.
Yeah, she's another inspiration for sure. Let's see, I'm gonna look in the chat. There's some really nice comments that I would like to just note. All best birthday wishes. Your work was an important influence as I grew up in Philadelphia, and in many ways you motivated me to seek out the North Bennett Street School when I moved to Boston. And that was from P.E. Kutcher, or Pat Kutcher. And Raymond, who is my colleague and the graphic designer at the Clay Studio, writes, when your husband Maurice English was head of UPenn Press, they published Phil Rawson's amazing book, Ceramics, which was probably the first time ceramics were analyzed, discussed in a philosophical way. Did you have anything to do with getting that book published?
Absolutely.
Good answer.
I met Philip Rawson at an NCCA meeting, and he was giving a lecture, and we were sitting on a step, outside of the auditorium. And he told me that Ceramics by Philip Rawson, which was a seminal book on ceramics, had been discontinued, and it was published by the Oxford University Press, and that the press was not going to republish it. Luckily, at that time, I was married to Maurice English, who was the director of the University of Pennsylvania Press. And I came back and I told him about this book, and he looked at it and he got in touch with the Oxford University Press to get permission to republish it. And then I spoke to Wayne Higby, and he wrote the beginning introduction of that book. And then I researched in the back of the book all the American artists that I could think of with their birth dates and their death dates or whatever. So I had a great deal to do with that, in the sense that I was lucky enough to have access to the director of the University of the Press. And as a result of that, he then published Philip Rawson's drawing book, which was also a seminal text. And Joseph Rishall was very important in reading that manuscript and letting Morris know whether or not it should be republished. So yes, there was. And who asked that question?
Oh, that was Raymond, who's the graphic designer, and he's also a ceramic artist at the Clay Studio. He's really wonderful colleague and sensitive and responsible for much of the wonderful imagery and communications that we put out. So
do you have a copy of that book at the Clay Studio? Because I have a few copies left.
I would love a copy.
That would be great. Very happy to give it to you. Right.
Thank you.
And I think Richard DeVore's pieces are on the cover, if I'm not mistaken.
So let's see, we have, well, first Leslie wrote back and said, thank you for that nice answer. Fabio Fernandez asks, what advances would you like to see for the field that haven't happened yet? That's another big question.
I'm very happy, in the sense, to recognize the fact that the field, when you mean the field, you mean just the crafts. I think it would be wonderful if major museums would acknowledge the field without any difficulty. I think it was wonderful that MoMA did an entire portion of exhibition of their textiles. It would be wonderful if they would begin to look at what is happening in the ceramic world outside of those artists who traditionally did not use ceramics, but also look beyond the artists who are now using ceramics, like Arlene Sheckett, who is considered, a contemporary major artist, but also look at the field of ceramics, which incorporates artists who are working in their studios, who are not normally associated with mainstream art. So I think it's beginning to happen. I mean, Ron Nagel had an exhibition at Matthew Marks a year or two ago, which was really, and also, John Mason had an exhibition with Gagosian last year, after his death, not it's still time. I would love to see a major exhibition of the work of Robert Arneson. I would love to see that at the Whitney. That would really make me very happy. Arneson showed at the Stedelijk, 20 or 30 years ago, but it would be wonderful to have a major exhibition of his work because he was a seminal figure in the funk movement, and his visibility has diminished. Very few people really know what he did, and the incredible. They know the portraits, but they don't know about all the other, the Johns and all the drawings and all the amazing, supportive pieces that are central to his career. What else would I say? I would like not to see all these divisions. I think I'm not even sure I like the idea that we have all these categories all the time. I'm not making sense right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. We have to both acknowledge the differences and join together and be unified. And I think we get a little siloed sometimes. But I'm going to read a couple of more comments here. Mark Burns writes, "Happy 90th to the Queen of Styrofoam Wigglies. Thanks for your courage and vision in supporting this wild child back in the day. You've always had a set of the best eyes in the business and still do. Much love." It's from Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. You were my favorite babysitter. I'll never forget when I came home one day and you weren't there. You had taken Matthew to see the Statue of Liberty.
I'm available.
Matthew, do you need a babysitter? There you are. And he was your favorite. That's so nice. I see someone asking for a recommendation of a reading list, and I think we could definitely put that together for you offline, because I think that Helen and I could probably spend another hour talking just about books. I know I wanted to read one from Marjorie Simon. She says that while taking an adult education class at PCA in 1975, I attended the talk with Heiss and Emmy. It was my first glimpse of what auteur jewelry could be. Thank you, Helen. So I am going to just say thank you to Helen for spending an hour of this special day with us.
Right. She just said Ken Price at the Met and also Betty Woodman at the Met. That was another, right.
More women in the field has certainly been a big thing that has, I think, changed during your lifetime. And I know
Although I think women in the crafts have also been very present. Toshiko was there, Karen Carnes was there, Lenore Tawney was there, Marguerite Wildenheim was there. I think that in our field, that women held themselves in a very strong position. They may not have been recognized outside of the field, but in the field itself, there was never seemed to be a problem about the position of the female.
Well, it certainly helps to have models like yourself. So I'm just so grateful that you spent an hour with us today because it's such a special day for you. And I really can't say that enough. I'm so excited that so many people joined us. I do want to also acknowledge just briefly that Helen is been very generous and she has donated several important pieces to the Clay Studio to support our capital campaign. And there is a page on our website that has some beautiful new photos of those images. We will be having an auction at some point in the next few months. We'll let everyone know. For now, it's just a chance to see how beautiful the objects are and to say thank you to Helen. I think probably many of you know that we are building a new building, which again is only possible because of the amazing support of people like Helen and all of you on the call over the years. So we are doing what Helen said. We are not stopping. We're going forward. We are moving towards the light. And we're just so happy that everyone's joined us and that Helen has been so generous. And I I don't know, I'm overwhelmed by the fact that I get to talk to you and hear about these stories. And as a historian, it's so important.
But you know, I wasn't alone in the city. I mean, Rick and Ruth Snyderman were there, you know, Albert Lakoff was there. I mean, we were, you know, there were so many of us, you know, working together in order to bring a huge pulse beat into Philadelphia and to take advantage of the fact that we had these wonderful universities and colleges and people. So we were a unique community, and nobody works alone. You know, we were all networking together, you know.
Yeah. And it's a community together that's made it so strong. I agree. And the Snydermans are here, and it's everyone. I'm so lucky to be part of the community now after it's been built so strong by all of you. And Clara is saying hello, and also yes, that the fact that we can now have an organization called Craft Now is also wonderful. I want to invite everyone to put any final comments or questions or happy birthday wishes into the chat so that we can send that on to Helen. And you're welcome to unmute yourself and say happy birthday again, or
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Birthday,
Helen.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much for honoring my 90th year. It's hard for me. I'll show you something. Wait, can I bring this?
Yeah, sure. Show us.
Wait.
Oh, it's your cake. Look at this, everyone.
Oh, wow.
The snow globe of herself sitting in her library.
Let us do, Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Wow.
Oh,
that's
great. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to let it be preserved. I'm going to figure out how to remove it.
You have to have a little piece. Just a little piece.
No, I'm going to.
Not going to happen.
Helen?
I
We have to send you another
Smithsonian.
cake so you can eat it.
What? Yeah.
Eileen, cut into it.
No,
not me.
I'm giving it.
I'm not doing it.
I think you should.
I have Peter's 80th
Actually, you can't cut into it. I think it was fired at Cone 6.
Good one, thank you.
Brilliant.
Okay,
Isn't
well,
it brilliant?
Yeah.
But I still have the top of my mother's 100th birthday cake in my Wunderkammer, and I have the top of Peter's sugar figure of his 80th birthday cake. So I am sure I will find a way to preserve. I know I will.
if anyone can find a way, Helen, it's definitely you.
Just put it with the
Maybe I'll
holy
make a brooch.
cookies.
Maybe I'll make a brooch out of it. Look,
A hat. Make a hat.
A hat.
a hat? Oh, yes.
Laminated.
Right. A hat. Well,
Saying
I don't know. I think maybe I'll get it in a baby carriage and just wheel it around. But I was really amazed at it. It was really good.
Rick and I wanted to add one item to your discussion about Objects USA, Helen. And that is, of course, we still have the book in our bookcase right here. But I think you know there'll be a 50th anniversary.
Right, with Glenn Adamson.
USA. And one part will be on White Street in Tribeca, and the other part will be a block away of new emerging artists on Franklin Street. And that would be curated by Glenn Adamson and James Samadas. And co-founder of that gallery, of course, is our Evan. So we're still involved. The rest of the family is going up that way too.
Who grew up stealing quarters from our cash drawer when he needed to buy something at the local store?
Now we can still.
Evan is doing a wonderful job. He's doing an amazing job. I'm jealous of his library. I asked him if he would photograph his library and send me a photograph of it, and he said he didn't do it. So you tell him that he is.
So I'll remind him.
Please remind him that he promised to photograph his design library and send it. Great.
Thanks.
And I know there's a book coming out also on Objects 20.
I think right around now, maybe.
Right, so it's very exciting.
Helen, show us the pin you're wearing.
Oh, just this
Tell them
arrived.
about the pin you're wearing.
All right, this arrived yesterday. I just opened it today. Can you see it?
Yes.
Wow. It's made by Mirjam Hiller, and it was commissioned by Dirk Allgeier, my publisher in Stuttgart. And it's typically her work, but there is within it a 9 and a 0. Can you see it? Can you see
Oh,
the
yeah.
Oh, sit back.
Wait, can you see the
Sit
9?
back.
Yes.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
She makes it from one flat sheet of steel. She takes a flat sheet of steel and she begins to, make her design, and nothing is added to it. So everything, all the elements and all the curvatures come from this one flat sheet of steel. And I have, excuse me.
This is so they can see it, Mom.
I did show it to them.
But they didn't show it. Okay. Never mind.
And also, I have sometimes when she makes a brooch, she'll send me the flat piece of steel that's been illustrated so that I can see how the curvature begin to become fabricated. It's really very interesting. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you for showing us. And I know there was another brooch that came recently.
There's the one that Kim and Robin made.
Mom, do you want me to hold it up to the camera? I'm in the other room.
Yes, would you? Yes. Can
Okay,
you do that?
I'll be very careful and I'll go get it.
Don't drop it.
Okay.
You see that mirror in the back? That's Julia Jackson. Do you see that mirror in the back?
Oh, yeah.
That's
The
a Julia Jackson mirror from the late 60s.
I love that. And it was in that beautiful show of things of yours with the Dan Jackson unicorn, and they were in the room together there. It
wasn't just my things, yeah. Well, also, let me tell you, the Hermitage exhibition was not just work that I owned. It was work from artists all over the country who donated the work or who had patrons who donated the work. So it wasn't my
I'll be right
donation.
I didn't get the door.
I am.
The next hour is going to be Matthew and Eileen talking about not dropping things while growing up.
We could give a seminar on how to manage your 90-year-old mother's birthday. That would take a couple of semesters.
I know that we're taking up probably too much of your time.
No, it's all, she's the master. Whatever she says, she's the boss.
I was the only one who ever broke anything.
That's not true.
Matthew, you're not sitting in the dining room now because behind you is the Wayne Higby, and that's not there anymore. Where are you sitting? Where did you get that photograph? Your background. Matthew.
I've been digging through your archives.
Here's the piece.
It's called.
That's the brooch.
Show the stand.
All right,
that's the brooch.
Wait.
And there it is on the stand.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It's called After the Storm. And Storm is relating to Storm King. So she meant after Peter died. So she made this amazing piece, and it just came. It's really
so
amazing.
That's just the brooch itself. And then it stands.
Mayor Kinney offered to make a 90-foot version to go where the Rizzo statue used to stand. So you're on hallowed ground.
Right. Did I just see Cyril on here?
Yeah.
Yes,
she's there.
Hi, Cyril.
Hi. Birthday, my dear.
Thank you. You hosted Heisbacher, Cyril. Do you remember that?
Really?
Do you remember I didn't have enough room in my house and you had Heisbacher sleeping at your house?
Oh, it's a great honor.
Do you remember that? In the 70s, 1974, Heis and Emmy and Aldo slept at your house on 20th Street.
Long time.
Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just say yes.
Well, I think that we're gonna.
I
let-
remember that.
Oh, sorry.
And I was just a kid, and there were all these people, and I was just totally confused. And I think Matthew just said, "It's fine, don't worry."
They were your favorite babysitters.
Those were
No,
my
no.
favorite words.
It's true, still are.
Yes.
That doorbell, that was 2 more flowers, deliveries of flowers, by the way, everybody.
How many is that? Does that bring it to? 27.
Well, the whole first floor is full. So there are now more flowers than there are pots.
Has anyone
got
sang
2
happy
houses to fill.
birthday? Have you ever
But-
had 154 people sing happy birthday to you all at once?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this morning. Yeah, that was good.
Morning. It was really wonderful.
Oh, someone, okay.
It was amazing. I hope that you all have a link till tonight. If you don't, email Matthew and Eileen. We'll send it to you.
No.
That's okay. All right. Well, I think that I'm gonna let everybody go. I know that Helen is just to go spend some time with her flowers. I mean, her children. And we will see you later, and enjoy the rest of this special day. We're so honored and grateful to you for all you've done. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to everybody for being here and being part of the, as I say, the tapestry of Mom's rich life, which I keep learning more about. If I ever knew this stuff, I've forgotten it, but I think I had a different perspective. So it's a really great opportunity for me too.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for inviting me to be part of your community and to be part of the Clay Studio. It's been a very important part of my life, and I want to thank you. And
Thank you.
love to all of you, because whatever I am is a composite of what all of you have been. You know, I'm just a cell that became what it was as a result of my relationships with you and the work that you've done and the ideas that you've supported and the energy that you've given to our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Lovely.
Happy birthday, Helen, Mom.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Birthday.
Birthday. Bye, everybody.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Oh, love you.
Bye, everybody.
I'll go reconnect the phone.
Okay.